to you to learn that I have endured far greater suffering than if I had patiently awaited my doom." "I am glad of it," rejoined Demdike, with a savage laugh. "But you have destroyed others besides yourself. Where is the fellow in the water? What ho, Uriel!" But as no sound reached him, he snatched a torch from one of the arquebussiers, and held it to the river's brink. But he could see neither hound nor man. "Strange!" he cried. "He cannot have escaped. Uriel is more than a match for any man. Secure the prisoner while I examine the stream." With this he ran along the bank with great quickness, holding his torch far above the water, so as to reveal anything floating within it. But nothing met his view until he came within a short distance of the mill, when he beheld a black object struggling in the current, and soon found that it was his dog, making feeble efforts to gain the bank. "Ah, recreant, thou hast let him go!" cried Demdike, furiously. Seeing his master, the animal redoubled his efforts, crept ashore, and fell at his feet with a last effort to lick his hands. Demdike held down the torch, and then perceived that the hound was quite dead. There was a deep gash in its side, and another in the throat, showing how it had perished. "Poor Uriel!" he exclaimed, "the only true friend I had, and thou art gone. The villain has killed thee, but he shall pay for it with his life." And hurrying back, he despatched 4 of the men in quest of the fugitive, while, accompanied by 2 others, he conveyed Paslew back to the Abbey, where he was placed in a strong cell, from which there was no possibility of escape, and a guard was set over him. Half an hour after this, 2 of the arquebussiers returned with Hal o' Nabs, whom they had succeeded in capturing after a desperate resistance, about a mile from the Abbey, on the road to Wiswall. He was taken to the guard room, which had been appointed in one of the lower chambers of the chapter house, and Demdike was immediately apprised of his arrival. Satisfied by an inspection of the prisoner, whose demeanour was sullen and resolved, Demdike proceeded to the great hall, where the Earl of Derby, who had returned thither after the midnight mass, was still sitting with his retainers. An audience was readily obtained by the wizard, and, apparently well pleased with the result, he returned to the guard room. The prisoner was seated by himself in one corner of the chamber, with his hands tied behind his back with a leathern thong, and Demdike, approaching him, told him that, for having aided the escape of a condemned rebel and traitor, and violently assaulting the king's lieges in the execution of their duty, he would be hanged on the morrow, the Earl of Derby, who had the power of life or death in such cases, having so decreed it, and he exhibited the warrant. "So you mean to hang me, wizard?" cried Hal o' Nabs, kicking his heels with great apparent indifference. "I do," replied Demdike, "if for nothing else, for slaying my hound." "I dunna think it," replied Hal. "Yo're not i' your mind, demon. I'm na prepared to dee just yet." "Then perish in your sins," cried Demdike. "I will not give you an hour's respite." "Yo'n be sorry when it's too late," said Hal. "Tush!" cried Demdike. "My only regret will be that Uriel's slaughter is paid for by such a worthless life as thine." "Then why take it?" demanded Hal, "specially when yo'n lose your child by doing so." "My child!" exclaimed Demdike, surprised. "How mean you, sirrah?" "I mean this," replied Hal, coolly, "that if I die to morrow morning, your child dies too. When I undertook this job, I calculated my chances, and took precautions aforehand. Your child's a hostage for my safety." "Curses on thee and thy cunning!" cried Demdike. "But I will not be outwitted by a hind like thee. I will have the child, and yet not be baulked of my revenge." "Yo'll never ha' it, except as a breathless corpse, bout my consent," rejoined Hal. "We shall see," cried Demdike, rushing forth, and bidding the guards look well to the prisoner. But ere long he returned with a gloomy and disappointed expression of countenance, and again approaching the prisoner, said, "Thou hast spoken the truth. The infant is in the hands of some innocent being over whom I have no power." "Ey towd thee so, wizard," replied Hal, laughing. "Hoind os ey be, ey'm a match for thee. Ha! ha! Now, mere life against child. Wilt thou set me free?" Demdike deliberated. "Harkee, wizard," cried Hal. "If yo'n hatching treason, ey'n done. Certainty o' revenge will sweeten my last moments." "Will you swear to deliver the child to me unharmed, if I set you free?" asked Demdike. "It's a bargain, wizard," replied Hal o' Nabs. "Ey swear. Boh yo mun set me free first, for ey winna tak your word." Demdike turned away disdainfully, and addressing the arquebussiers, said "You behold this warrant, guard. The prisoner is now committed to my custody. I will produce him on the morrow, or account for his absence to the Earl of Derby." One of the arquebussiers examined the order, and vouching for its correctness, the others signified their assent to the arrangement, upon which Demdike motioned the prisoner to follow him, and quitted the chamber. No interruption was offered to Hal's egress, but he stopped within the courtyard, where Demdike awaited him, and unfastened the leathern thong that bound together his hands. "Now go and bring the child to me," said the wizard. "No, ey ne'er bring it to ye myself," rejoined Hal. "Ey knost better than that. But at t' church porch in half an hour, and t' bantlin shall be delivered to ye safe and sound." And without waiting for a reply, he ran off with great swiftness. At the appointed time, Demdike sought the church, and as he drew near it, there issued from the porch a female, who, hastily placing the child, wrapped in a mantle, in his arms, tarried for no speech from him, but instantly disappeared. Demdike, however, recognised in her the miller's daughter, Dorothy Croft. CHAPTER VIII.